Hi friends, it's Deanna here today, and for this segment of sewing a free pattern with Deanna, I am sewing the Weekender by DIY Club, Do It Yourself Better Club. This is a free pattern. It is super cute. I have actually never sewn it before, so this is gonna be our first time sewing this pattern, and it's gonna be my first time sewing this pattern. So we'll see how it turns out. It has the potential to be a super cute bag, so I'm super excited about it. So we're gonna get started. I already cut out my pattern, and I'm using a heavier fabric, so I do not have to line this fabric. If you're using a thinner fabric, you will have to line it fully, but I am not, because this is a pretty thick fabric. It's like an upholstery kind of fabric. So that's what I'm using. My fabric was not quite long enough, so I do have a piece right here where I put them together. I just cut my pattern all the way up to that piece, and then I added a 1/4 inch allowance, and then I sewed it together, right sides together at the edge, and so it's one continuous piece, and it does have the shape already. This is part of the pattern. I didn't mess it up, I don't think. Okay, so we're gonna get started sewing this puppy up. First things first, I'm going to put one of my pieces right side up on my board. As you can see, there's 2 notches right here on this side. That is the side that I'm going to sew together. I'm gonna put my other one right on top, and see, this one also has the notches. So I'm gonna go ahead, and that's the side I'm going to sew. That's your middle side. And so we're gonna go ahead, I'm going to pin it. It's a 3/8 seam allowance. I'm going to sew with my sewing machine. I'm just going to do a straight stitch down that seam, and then I'm gonna open up the seam by steaming it. I have sewn that seam together, as you can see right there. I'm going to open my bag up, and I'm going to press that seam allowance open. Now, once that seam allowance is open, I'm going to match up those notches. I am grabbing the inside pleat. This is my seam, and I'm overlapping it over here to my other notch right there. Okay, I want to make sure that my lines are somewhat even. I know that I'm not the best at it, but I'm gonna try. Then I'm gonna go the same pleat on the other side of the seam. I'm doing it again, pleating, overlapping to the other side right here. And I'm going to pin, and I'm gonna pin right here as well. We're gonna do the same for the bottom, but again, we're gonna go ahead and baste that afterwards. I'm gonna do it again at the bottom. I'm going to steam, and then I'm going to baste. I'm going to go ahead and baste these 2 with just a basting stitch over on my sewing machine. All right, once that is basted right there at the top and steamed down, I'm gonna set it aside for a minute. We're gonna move on to our bag pockets, and I'm using this floral, and it's a thin fabric, so I'm going to go ahead and use some interfacing on it, because I wanted, it's a thin fabric, so I want to use something that puts some interfacing on it so it gives it some stability. If you're using interfacing, make sure you follow your instruction manual on how to put your interfacing on, so that it's nice and sturdy and good. I'm just using lightweight interfacing, so it's not too heavy, and I'm just steaming it on. But it gives it more of a what do you call it, sturdiness to the fabric. I'm also doing it from the other side. A lot of people like to start, when they're basting their interfacing, they start at either one edge or they start at the middle and then they go out. That way you won't have any ripples or anything like that. So you want to take that into consideration as you're doing this part. All right, I'm gonna grab my pocket. I'm folding right sides together, and I'm gonna match them up at that notch. There is a notch right there at the top. So you wanna make sure that that notch is matched together. Okay, so once that's done, I'm going to sew up my two sides, my two raw edges. So this top is gonna stay open where that notch is. I'm sewing those two raw edges out again at a 3/8 seam allowance, and I'm just gonna sew them, both sides closed. All right, those two sides are sewn. I'm going to, if you want to go ahead and just clip these corners to give it a little bit of a more less bulky feel right here, but just don't trim the thread. You don't want to do that. We're gonna go ahead and flip the bag over the pocket, and you can use whatever tool you've got to help you poke out those corners. Even a pencil will work just fine, but I'm using the tweezers that come with my serger, just poking out those corner edges. Okay, if that happens, whoop, that means I didn't go all the way down. So you can go back and turn it back around and fix that. Okay. All these corners are right. There we go. All right, so then once you're fixed that, you're gonna turn it and steam it all the way out. And we're gonna go and top stitch right here at this top edge, not this edge right here, but this, I'm gonna top stitch from 1 inch down from the top. Just give it a top stitch. I'm pretty sure I said a whole inch, but it's 1/2 inch. It's just 1/2 inch from the top. I'm gonna put that aside and we're gonna grab our lining. All right, so with my lining, I'm gonna grab make sure your pocket placements are marked. I marked mine right here. I'm gonna grab my piece and I'm going to match them right sides together by the notch. Whoop. So here is my notch right there. Those are put them right sides together, and I'm gonna sew that right there together at a 3/8 seam allowance. If you need to move your pins, make sure that you mark your fabric to show where the pocket is gonna go. That way you don't lose that spot. I'm gonna go over to my sewing machine and sew together 3/8 seam allowance. All right, it's been sewn together. I'm gonna open it up and seam that seam allowance, that seam open. And here is my mark still. I'm just gonna leave one on there because really that's all I need right now. I'm gonna seam that open, that seam allowance. And then I'm going to flip it right side up. Here, see where my mark is still? I can still see my pin right there. I'm gonna place my pocket right sides together with, see where that notch was? That is where I'm gonna mark. I'm gonna put it right over where I marked my pocket placement and pin. And then I'm gonna go ahead and sew it on, top stitch it on all the way down with, again, a 3/8 seam allowance. So I'm just pinning and then I'm gonna go top stitch. I'm gonna bring that pocket up so that that seam is gonna be on the inside now. I'm bringing that pocket up. I'm gonna go ahead and remove that pin that I was using to mark, and I'm going to steam it down. And now I am going to go ahead and pin my sides, because I'm going to go and top stitch all the way around, up the top, down the side, down the bottom, up this other side. And I'm also going to top stitch down the middle of where my seam is. So if you want, and then you'll have like 2 pockets, unless you want it to be a big pocket, then you don't have to top stitch down the middle, but I'm gonna go ahead and do that down, around, and the middle. Pocket is done. And we're gonna go ahead and grab our liner and our outer, and we're gonna put it right sides together. Once they're right sides together, we're gonna sew the top, starting at the top, all the way around the whole strap and the other strap, all the way around the 2 straps, stopping at the other side. So from strap to strap, all the way around. Look, when you have all these curves, you can do a couple of triangle cuts if you don't have any other tools. And so like all these little curve areas, so that when you go to open it, it has like a nice divot and it turns nicely. Up at the top, you can trim a little bit that excess if you had some excess there. So I'm just gonna continue to go all the way around and just kind of clip in here and there, different places. And then we're gonna go ahead and turn it right side out. Once you've sewn all the way around and you have trimmed those little pieces around the edges of the curves, all those little curves that take around the whole thing, okay, we're gonna go ahead and turn it right sides out. And hopefully you just sewed the top part, so you didn't end up sewing the bottom like I did. And then when I sewed the bottom, I had to go and unstitch the whole bottom. This is what happens when you make it for the first time. You make all the mistakes, and then hopefully next time you'll make it perfectly. And hopefully you won't have to make that mistake because you learn from me making mistakes. So let's go ahead and turn it all the way around, right side out. Right here where it gets kind of tough, I like to use this tweezers to help me pull this out when it gets really thin. And that always is helpful. So let's do that. Once we've turned it all the way around, we're gonna go ahead and steam that down. I think I wanna steam it from the liner side because it is the nicer side to steam on, that fabric. My iron had turned off, so it needs to recharge. Okay, make sure you're steaming all those seams down. All right, once it's steamed, I'm gonna go ahead and just tie these straps out of the way. And then I'm gonna go ahead and open it. And I'm gonna keep these straps right here in the middle, and I'm gonna pin it right here, right sides together. So that those side seams are gonna be right sides together, and they're gonna get sewn to outer, liner to liner. And I'm gonna go all the way down and sew with a 3/8 seam allowance. And all the way down the liner as well. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and sew. We're going to now turn it, and where we sewed, actually not turn it. you can actually fit it right through your ironing board, and we're gonna steam that seam open where you just sewed before we move on to the next step. So let me go ahead and sew that. So steam that seam open all the way down on both the right side, the lining and the outer. Just opening that seam allowance and steaming it down. And now we're gonna fold it, pull it out on itself, and steam that last area right here around the edge right here. And again, you can just fit it right through there and steam it. On those, make sure everything is nice and steamed. And now we're gonna move on to our bottom. Ooh, we're almost there. Now, if you wanted to sew, do a magnetic closure, you can go ahead and do that now, attach that now to it. Or if you wanted to do like a little strap or something where you can tie it, you can go ahead and do that now as well. But we're gonna move on to our bottom piece. All right, time for our bottoms to be set up. Okay, so our bottom of our bag. I've got my lightweight lining. I've got some batting I'm using for the sturdy material. You can use felt, you can use just all kinds of different things. Something that has a little bit more weight to it. Really, if you don't have anything, I was just going to do, I found that batting, so I'm using that, but I was just gonna use a couple layers of this thicker fabric. And you're gonna place it right on top of each other. I want my right side, my pretty side, to be up so that way I can see it. And I'm gonna pin all the way around, and I'm gonna go around and sew that together so that they're all the pieces, all the layers are together. So I'm gonna go over in my sewing machine and sew around the whole thing with a 1/4 inch allowance. So I'm going all the way around and sewing that together. Now I'm gonna put that to the side. I'm gonna grab my bag and face it, pull it out again. Okay. And we'll start with the pretty fabric. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab our liner or bottom piece. I'm gonna steam it real quick, let's make it flat. And you can see these two little notches right here. I'm going to match those notches with my notches on my bottom of the bag right here. And I'm gonna put them right sides together. I'm grabbing all these pins I've been leaving everywhere. So right sides together. Those notches are touching each other, right sides. And I'm pinning all the way around this whole bag, the bottom of the bag. All right, so there is my bottom all pinned. This is my outer fabric. So now for my liner, and I'm gonna sew all the way around that whole thing at a 3/8 seam allowance. For my lining area, my bottom, where my liner is, I'm gonna grab where that batting is and I'm gonna place it right sides together. Now, both of mine are facing up, so either one or mine will work. So it doesn't really matter, but if you have one that's not facing right, you wanna make sure that you're placing the one that's facing right side along, touching this right side of the bag. So right sides together, and we're pinning all the way around again. Now, for this bottom piece, we're going to leave a gap unsewn, like a 4 inch. So I'm gonna sew like up to right here, and then I'm gonna leave a gap. So I'm gonna put a pin like standing straight up so I know my gap, and up to like right here. I'm gonna measure about 4 inches so I can turn my bag inside out. And I'm gonna continue to do that all the way around, matching my notches, making sure everything is nice and even. And then I'm gonna go over there and sew. We are almost done, but before we turn it around, see, here's my gap. We want to make sure that all is cut like we did earlier. We want to make sure all those seams are cut everywhere and you don't have any gaps, even on your other fabric. Now, if you wanted to go back, I don't know, I wasn't going to do it on this one, but if you wanted to serge those edges, you can go ahead and do that. And now I'm going to go ahead and go back where I left that gap. And I'm going to start turning my bag around. All right, once it's this part is out, that's all you need to take out at first. You're gonna go ahead and where that gap is, where you left that gap, you're gonna tuck that in to each other and top stitch right there. I'm gonna go over to my sewing machine and top stitch that side closed. Now that that's closed, I can fit my bottom of my bag right into the outer side of my bag. Fit it in there. Make sure that bottom goes all the way down. Peel all those basting stitches that I have everywhere. Pull them all out. You don't want basting stitches hanging out everywhere. So I'm gonna pull that. And you can go back and steam all you want if you want it to be a little bit more sturdy, but your bag is finished. How beautiful. I'm in love. And that wasn't even that hard, was it? You have this top right here where you can notch it however you want to. You can even put like a little monogram right here in the front. Here's your pockets on the inside. You got those two cool pockets where you can put all kinds of stuff in it, or just a big pocket. Here's the bottom. It's just a nice sturdy bottom, and I love it. This is great. Obviously its name is named the weekend for a reason. This is great for a weekend getaway where you can stuff all your clothing in there, all your stuff for your weekend. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Hope you love this. I am in love. I'm gonna make about 20 more because, you know, you can always use a new bag. Please let me know if you have any questions about anything that I did or did not do. Please comment, like, subscribe, share with your friends, and subscribe so you never miss all our new free patterns that I'm going over, I'm sewing together. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.